So let's move to the other side of the ball. Wide receivers, Jack. So this obviously is an interesting place to talk. Obviously, we really know that Ayuk and Debo are firm grasp of the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. But there's a lot of things we wanted to see past that. Obviously, we want to see what Jalen Hurd is going to bring now that he's somewhat healthy and practicing. We obviously have Mo Sanu, who we've seen a lot of great news about his health and so on and so forth. And then there's another guy, or a couple guys that are really starting to make a name for themselves. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing as far as the overall wide receivers and how that pecking order is starting to look, a couple weeks into training camp now.
Yeah, you kind of hit on him. Sanu is still doing Sanu things. He's going to be your possession underneath kind of a receiver. He's still showing to be that guy on a regular basis. And then Jalen Hurd had a reception on Friday, which was impressive considering it was his first reception in practice since 2019. So to go all the way back to training camp in 2019 from the last time he even had a reception even in training camp. So he had one on Friday, so that was good. The guy that's really stood out so far is the free agent pickup out of Arizona, right? Trent Sherfield. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's really kind of started to come on. He had a big day on Tuesday with him and Trey Lance hooked up on a deep throw for a touchdown, and you just saw a lot. He had a number of catches that day. He was very impressive, and every time they've given him opportunities, he's got out and made plays. So he's doing a really good job of that. So Sherfield's definitely looking good. Juan Jennings just came back too, right, from his absence. So he's working his way back in, and he looked like he was, he looked pretty decent as well on Friday when I was there. So I think you're starting to see that group starting to take shape. But Sherfield's going to make this team because he's going to make it. He's going to be, if they keep 6, he's at least going to be number 6 because they're going to want to keep him for special teams. Because he's showing enough as a wide receiver that he's going to be able to stick around on this team. So you've got Samuel and you've got Ayuk is your top 2, and I think it's Sanu, Sherfield, Hurd, and Jennings. I think that's really your 6. I don't really see anybody that's really stepping up and beating any of those guys out right now.
So I want to ask definitely about Debo and Ayuk. I want to spend some time talking about them. But there is a guy you left off that list who I know when you did your article about the 53 that were going to make the roster, you were like, is definitely going to make it. And that's Richie James Jr. So are you wavering on that pick now? Does it look like he's not going to make it? He's obviously a fan favorite for us.
Yeah, part of the biggest part of being a receiver is actually receiving the ball, and time again the ball's hitting his hands and then hitting the ground, and that's happened. That's a kind of something that's a repeat occurrence throughout training camp with him. So, I think he's really on the bubble with making this, especially when the only way he makes the team is if they put him in over Sanu, which, given the way that Shanahan's utilized those wide receiver positions, I don't necessarily see James as being a guy that he's going to want to put in over Sanu as like your number 3 guy.
So to answer directly Greg's question, is Richie James going to get cut? Your answer is Jackhammer.
From everything I've seen right now, he's number 7, and so he'd be out.
Wow, that's a tough one because I think, obviously he's been a fan favorite, shown some flashes, but, you got to compete. And if there's guys better, you got to take the best, 6 guys. And you're pretty confident that they're going to take only 6, right?
Usually, once you get beyond 6, it makes it really tough everywhere else. And so if they plan on keeping 4 tight ends like they normally do, then 6 would be the most that they'd have there. The only way that I could see that maybe not happen is if they decide to keep James and be able to sneak Jennings onto their practice squad. That's the only other way that I could maybe see that playing out.
Raymond, you don't even have to wait for Swan Song. We saved it for the end because we know that's what everybody wants to talk about. That's going to be the main event. Appreciate you stopping in, though, Raymond.
Who wants to talk about quarterbacks? There's nothing going on with quarterbacks.
Got you. So we talked about, some of the positions, who's going to fit into that wide receiver 3, who you think is going to make, the top 6. But let's spend some time talking about the 2 that we definitely know are going to be the guys, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. A lot of people are excited about these two. Debo's coming into his third season, Ayuk his second season. What are you seeing out of these two receivers? And are you high on them, low on them? What do you feel right now?
No, I'm high on him. I've really liked Brandon Ayuk from the get go. I think he's a guy that has the ability to be a number one wide receiver, and I think we're gonna see that potential brought out of him this year. Same thing with Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is still the same Deebo Samuel that we've always known and loved. That guy who's going to be making the plays out of the backfield, running the ball, catching the ball, getting the ball in all kinds of different areas. One of the cool parts in this camp is you've seen him get the ball downfield quite a bit more often. And that all starts with a quarterback that's able to feed him. And if these guys, as these guys continue to grow and the quarterback continues to grow, I think you're going to see their output continue to get better and better, and I would expect to see some big things out of Ayuk. There's some. He's really shifty, really good off the line of scrimmage, and the way that he sets up defenders is right up there with the best.
Now, are you seeing any kind of? And I don't know, like for me personally, I'm kind of like a rookie when it comes to what actually goes on in training camp. I've never been to one, so that's why I'm like kind of like the geek fan when I get to talk to you on Monday nights, because you are there and you know way more about this stuff than I do. But are we seeing any kind of like wrinkles in the offense, especially with these receivers? Because it seems like we're seeing, at least from the clips that are going out, a lot more down the field stuff, a lot more connections past that 20 yards that we don't really see too often in the actual playbook when we're seeing games. Do you see that they're starting to open up the book a little bit more, knowing that these two guys are capable?
Yeah, I think what's happening is there's a quarterback that's willing to throw the ball down the field, and so that's opening these guys. That's why you're seeing when you're watching these clips from camp and you're seeing the ball go down the field more when they're a team. It's because they have a quarterback that wants to push the ball down the field, right?
Right.
And so that's really the biggest difference, and that's why you're seeing those guys touching the ball down the field more and more often. But you're going to see Deebo Samuel still be that same guy. There was some stuff that they showed on Friday that fits right in with everything you would have thought from on Tuesday as well. Everything that your mind can create of the running game with Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel, it was on display on Tuesday and Friday.
Now, once again, the NFC West probably has the best group of wide receivers out of any division, I would say, just because each team is stacked. How do you see these two receivers competing with the Seattle receivers, Arizona receivers, and obviously the Rams receivers? Do you feel like this could be an elite group just like those other groups? Because I guess nationally they don't get as much praise as maybe the other receiving corps.
Yeah, I think they have the ability to be right up there in terms of the way that they're helping their offense. Their numbers might not be what jumps off the screen at everybody and gets them notoriety, but for what they're asked to do in the 49ers offense, I think they're going to be as good as any of these groups. And you got to remember, when you start talking about the passing game, it goes beyond just the wide receivers, and you got to include George Kittle in that as well. Mm-hmm. Because George Kittle's, as far as the tight ends in the NFC West, he's the best one. So he's going to impact that. He's really the 49ers one. If I would say he's probably the wide receivers, the quarterback, the 49ers number one receiver is George Kittle, and then you have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. So from that standpoint, I think they're right there with the other teams in the league. It's just they just go about their business a little bit differently.
And do you see, because obviously Kyle Shanahan's offense, they do a lot of jet sweeps, and then they do a lot of like short passes and let these guys kind of use their athleticism to get, that's why they're called the Yak Boys, right? Mm-hmm. Do you see now maybe being more of the traditional quote unquote wide receivers where these guys can get some notoriety? There's obviously a debate that's going on constantly on 49er Twitter about Deebo being a glorified running back or a true wide receiver, right? And I think a lot of that really you can't put on Deebo. It's how he's being utilized and, the way like he's getting all these wow moments on these jet sweeps and through this yak. But do you see maybe this offense kind of going towards utilizing the guys as pure wide receivers, just with the technique on their route running, as well as being able to make some big plays in the air versus on the ground.
With Brandon Ayuk, I see that more. He's more of that type of guy. Deebo Samuel is kind of a running back / wide receiver type guy. He has the ability to run the full route tree. Don't get me wrong, but he is Ricky Watters. That's period. End of the story. That's who he is. If you go back to 1992, 93, 94, and you watch the 49ers and the way that they utilized Ricky Watters when Mike Shanahan was here, that's Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is Ricky Watters, just in this day and age. Ricky Watters, but that's not a bad thing. Ricky Watters was a wide receiver at Notre Dame up until his senior year. His senior year, he became a running back out of necessity. Right. That's a guy who went from receiver to running back, and he stuck at running back. And now you've got Deebo, who he's a receiver, but don't get me wrong, he can do all the same things that Ricky Watters could do. He's built just like him. Their body types are so similar. The only difference is he's 19 instead of in the 30 numbers.
Got you. So let's kind of crystallize this before we move on. So if you had to take the 6 in your way too early predictions on week 2 of training camp, who are the 6 that Kyle Shanahan ends up keeping from what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think I said Ayuk and Samuel are 1, 2, 3 would be Sanu. 4 is going to be Trent Sherfield. 5, Jalen Hurd. And who did I have as the 6th one? Because I think
Juan Jennings.
Juan Jennings, thank you. Yes, Juan Jennings.
Got you. Okay. So Craig Kraft is not there.
Unfortunately, no. The river will
run dry.
For the season. Yes.
The river runs dry. Oh man.